Hey everyone, welcome to Past Lives and the Divine. I'm Gina, the host of this podcast. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about how hypnosis has helped me. And oh my, with this topic, I kind of regret this topic. I think it's a good one. Obviously, I'm in charge here, so if I didn't want to do it, I wouldn't. But it's a massive topic. As I was brainstorming this and thinking about this topic and how I would put together this episode, putting it into an episode is a little bit more difficult than I thought it would be. However, I've got my notes. This is my second time recording this episode, so here we go. It's all good. It's just kind of the way things are working behind the scenes, at this moment in time. But I'm happy to be here. I'll be talking about how hypnosis has helped me and kind of as a way to help me organize my thoughts. It's how hypnosis has helped me since I started the podcast to right now. And I'll give a little bit of that background. And I'm doing this in honor of 5 years of podcasting and all the gifts that podcasting has brought me. Friends, clients, hypnotic arts training students, all kinds of kind words in my email. I'm really thankful for it. I'm proud of the 5 years of podcasting. It is kind of a weird... I'll probably get more into this later or in a different episode because I've gotten actually a couple questions about just podcasting and my journey as a podcast host and what it has meant. And again, I'm doing this in honor of 5 years of podcasting. There's a link in the show notes if you want to ask me a question about podcasting, about hypnosis, maybe something else that I said on the podcast. I will be answering some listener questions. I believe it'll be in the last episode. And so submit your questions via the Help Me Celebrate 5 years of Past Lives in the Divine. Before we get into that, though, I just want to give you a little lay of the land if you are just kind of picking up after not really tuning into the last couple episodes. You're going to want to listen to episode 184. I'm talking about closing down, landing this plane that is Past Lives in the Divine. And the next few episodes are the final few episodes. In next week's podcast episode, I'm sharing my most recent hypnosis session, Hypnotic Journey to Another Lifetime. And then in the week after that, I will be sharing a bit about an ayahuasca ceremony that I was a part of in June. So I'll be telling you more about kind of what happened there and the big shifts that I experienced. And then our final episode together will be after that. And I'm having Kelly Smith join me and she's going to ask me some questions. She'll be interviewing me. And we will be covering her questions. We'll also be covering listener questions. So do submit your questions if you have some. So yes, I am setting this podcast down. However, I am still working in hypnosis, so don't forget about me. I'm still seeing one-on-one clients this fall, which, by the way, if you want a one-on-one session with me, go to pastlivesinthedivine.com, get on the email list, because I'm going to be sending my fall schedule. It's going to open in 1 or 2 weeks, and the people on my email list get that link first. They'll have that link for a week or two, and then I'll share it publicly, but it's been a couple years since I shared that link publicly because all the sessions get taken by my email list, which is so cool. And I'm so damn thankful that that's where I'm at in my career. As you can imagine, it makes a lot less work on my end. But I just want you to know, get on that email list. I'll let you know when that opens up. And then we also have the hypnotic arts training. We have registration open for that. So if you're interested in the hypnotic arts training, if you're interested in leading these hypnosis sessions on your own, come get trained by me. I would love to train you. It's Sarah Leverett of Intuitive Empowerment and you can follow the link in the show notes to learn more about that. A couple other ways you could work with me if you think you're going to miss me when this podcast is gone. If you have a podcast, you could interview me on your podcast. Let me know if there's something about my journey, something about my experience that you want to chat with me about on your podcast. And then I'm going to be doing some live events. And as you maybe know, I love a road trip and I drive close to 20,000 miles a year. And a lot of that are road tripping miles. So I would love to add some live events on these road trips. So if you have meeting space, yoga studio, spiritual studio, some other kind of meeting space, and you have people who you think would love to come to that meeting space and have me lead them through a hypnotic journey to another lifetime and then like a discussion afterward, let me know. Let's talk about that. I, of course, have my outline that I use that I kind of start with anytime I'm working with a group in hypnosis. And I like to customize it a little bit for each group so we could have a conversation about that. So let me know. Either way, Gina at pastlivesandthedivine.com. Okay, let's get into it, just how hypnosis has helped me. So you've heard many of my past life regressions. I've had even more past life regressions. I'm a very mindful person. If something feels heavy, stuck, uncomfortable, I like to dig into it. And for me, hypnosis is just a space of great clarity and great inner truth and great alignment with my soul desires. And so there have been like a million things that I've learned because of hypnosis and been pushed to do because of something I experienced in hypnosis. But I would say that for the sake of this conversation, it's all about that transcendental state for me, also known as hypnotic trance. So I have experienced that hypnotic trance state that I call a transcendental state because, yes, it is a hypnotic trance state, but it is a brainwave state. It is a state of intention, and it is a state of being, and it is a state of raising the frequency within your body, within the energetic being that you are, to access these higher knowings. And hypnosis is one way to get there. We can reach that brainwave state naturally, effortlessly, automatically. We do it on the way to and from sleep. We do it. We even sometimes can pulse in and out of it while we're moving through our day, depending what we have going on. And we can also get there intentionally. We can get there unintentionally through like massage, through shavasana pose, through many different ways that we can get there intentionally or unintentionally. And hypnosis is one of them. But you could do psychedelics, you could do drumming, you could do breath work, you could do ecstatic dance, you could do chanting, you could do praying, you could do so many things to get yourself into that space. And for me, because I'm trained in hypnosis and I work in hypnosis every day, nearly every day, that is a modality that has not only worked really well for me, but it still works really well for me, even though I can very much access that transcendental state. I don't need a hypnotic induction at this point. Hypnosis works really well, even for people who are a little fearful, they're a little nervous, they're a little unsure if they can do it. Hypnosis to me is just this really gentle, open, aware time where we can access these states. And then if we're working actually one-on-one with someone, it's even more intentional and even more directed. And so it's even easier to relax into it, even easier to open up to that space and any insights that are for you in that space. What I like about all of that too, the intention, the ability to navigate it alone, do it with a recording, or working one-on-one with someone. When we access those unseen realms, that higher awareness, that higher consciousness from that hypnotic modality, we're more likely when we're in that transcendental space in different times, in breath work, in yoga, in a plant medicine journey, in some other way. When you find yourself there, intentionally or unintentionally, it's easier to identify that we are there, and it's easier to navigate that we are there. And that's another benefit of hypnosis, I think, is just the intention, the exploring, and the ability to work with someone doing that with us is really, really valuable. And so, okay, that transcendental state for me is a place where I feel completely relaxed. I can get totally rejuvenated. I feel totally in the present moment. And I can also really direct that energy and direct my focus and have a conversation with my spirit guides, my higher self, my ancestors, loved ones on the other side. I can have conversations about, I think I want to do A, B, and C in my business, but how should I put it together? And I can get insights and wisdom like that. I can take specific questions, specific relationships, and bring them to the front of my mind and get just a new perspective on them and some insights and answers to questions that I might have. And so it's that space that holds so much magic. And the more time I've spent navigating people through those spaces, and the more time that I've spent being in that space myself, I'm able to access it quicker, access it in more ways, and and when I've accessed that state of being, I'm so much better at being aware of kind of like what's going on, the unseen realms, kind of where I can push the edges, where are my curiosities going. And it's easier for me to be with my intention, follow my curiosities, and not get kind of spooked by the whole thing, which lends itself to all kinds of learning in all kinds of situations. So in a couple weeks, I'm going to share with you my journey with the plant medicine ayahuasca. And I really, that was a group effort for a few reasons. And it was such an incredible experience. And I know that I got so much out of it because I was willing to go there with my intention and curiosity. And instead of being like, oh, I'm not getting anything, I just keep thinking of this one weird scene. And instead it's like, I know that one weird memory or that one weird feeling or scene is a thread to be pulled on. And how to pull on that thread. And how to grab what comes in next. And just be able to navigate these unseen realms. And hypnosis, those unseen realms, that transcendental state for me is such a part of my daily life that it's hard for me to put into words like how much my practice being a client, practice being the facilitator, how much that has educated me on how to navigate those unseen realms and where I'm able to get even more information. And I think that's the way I'll put it. I could, list 100 examples that maybe kind of paint the picture. But for me, it's all about that transcendental state. Hypnosis is one way we can get there. I know a lot about that one way, so I tend to take it a lot. It's usually worked for me, but I think it's good to switch it up too. And what's cool about hypnosis is that because that's where my education is and that's where my practice is, it makes it so much easier for me to get that same richness and that same full body experience and really lean into it and learn from it when I get to that transcendental state in meditation, in yoga, in when I'm getting a massage or getting energy or body work done, in a plant medicine ceremony, in all kinds of ways. So it's not only the experience itself, but the skills that it's taught me and how I'm able to continually to use that to just get to know myself even more and continue to gain insights and wisdom about who I am so I can make more decisions that are in alignment with what my soul truly wants. And when I do that, life just keeps getting better and better and better. Okay, so that's the biggest one. That was kind of like this overarching cloud of goodness and information. But I would say, yeah, that transcendental state. And you know what? Maybe hypnosis to the transcendental state, it is all about the destination. The hypnotic journey is beautiful and nourishing. But yeah, like that destination of the transcendental state. That's where it's at for me. I think we can get so much healing in our physical bodies just being in that state of consciousness, awareness. It's a beautiful thing. Okay, so that actually brings up a listener question. So I got a listener question, and the question said something to the effect of, how easy is it for you to drop in? And it is so easy. It's so easy because I've trained my mind to do it. And I even think that when I'm with a client, I know I've shared this on the podcast before, when I'm with a client, I'm not in hypnotic trance, I'm not in that transcendental space, but I am open. Like the frequency of the energetics of my body are lifted, my intuition is wide open. So even though I'm not right there with them, I'm real close to that. And to have all of that practice, it's pretty easy for me to drop in at this point. If I'm not like stressing out and having a lot of mental chaos, sometimes I can almost like touch the divine. Like I can go up through my higher self and continue to go up and like touch the divine where we just weep. I mean, I can get there in 15 minutes. I don't know. It seems weird to put a time on it, but I usually meditate for 15 to 20 minutes a day, at least once a day, sometimes twice a day. But that it is like if I go in with intention and a clear mind, and as I say that, I'm like, why don't I do that once a day? Okay, cool. So yeah, it's pretty easy. And I think that when we can get to know our intuition and how this information comes to us when we're in that hypnotic trance state, it's easier for us to also trust that experience when we have it when we're alone or when it's unplanned or spontaneous. And that's a beautiful thing. But in terms of like drop in and get insights and connect with my higher self, I could probably do that in 5 minutes. And I put a time on it just because in my head, I have my own process for it. So I kind of like do my grounding and centering, and I do my protecting, and then I do my journeying to those places. And so it can go pretty fast. And I've actually been playing around with shorter hypnotic journeys in kinship just because we do a hypnotic journey every month. And so their minds are ready. And it's not just the people in kinship. You could do that listening to podcast episodes as well. But the more we do it, the more we understand it. And so the easier it is for us to navigate and get information. And that question was from listener Kelly. So hi, Kelly. And when I look back on the last 5 years, 2 things that really stick out that have gone away or do not go unchecked. This energy is used to my advantage if I find it's still in my life. And that's nightmares and like really, really tough, really toxic self-sabotage, self-critical talk. And, as I say that right now, the nightmares are gone. And the self-sabotage, the super critical thinking, that's more gone than it's ever been. And I notice like a new layer of that lifting off like every year or two. I mean, if I were to, I guess, estimate of how often it happens, I don't really know. But, I am always discovering ways that I'm an asshole to myself, essentially. And that's a beautiful thing. Life gets better every time that happens. And so I feel really good about it now. And I'm sure I will just continue to learn and grow in that space. But both the nightmares and the self-sabotage, like really hard self-critical talk to myself, both of those things were really a symptom of unaddressed needs or wants, which, oh my, I needed a years-long education in how to understand that, how to not resist it, how to surrender to these things because they are the truth of my body that I live in, how to ask for help, how not to beat myself up so much that I don't ask for help, how to receive the help without beating myself up for needing it or inconveniencing the other person. I mean, on this journey for a full year, not too long ago, my practice was simply in moments where I didn't feel good, I would just ask myself, how do you feel? What do you need? How do you feel? What do you need? And that was my commitment. And I didn't have to fulfill that need. I didn't have to tell anybody that need. I just had to admit it to myself, which sounds, I hope you hear that and you're just like, what a sad little sap. But if you're someone like me who has a really hard time asking for help and receiving the help with a gratitude only in my heart and not gratitude and guilt or shame or beating myself up, do what you got to do. But I would often have to ask myself, how do you feel right now? And what do you need? And wow, it seems so small, but in that was probably a 2-year period around that was like me really understanding the things that if I'm not trying to be anyone else and I'm really trying to listen to myself, yeah, it was pretty incredible. Even the ability to relax and soften in a chair. I mean, ay, ay, ay. You have to peel me off the ceiling sometimes. But it really was this, like, the only way I could really sink into it was like, I can't fulfill every single one of these needs. It's like, I can't go from 0 to 100. And it really, really changed my life. And the nightmares, there's a Past Lives in the Divine episode where I go into dream interpretation, and there's also a hypnotic journey to interpret your own dreams. And for that, I mean, it's nightmares and dreams in the title, so you can just skim through the list. There's a couple of them. But even within that, the nightmares, while in hypnosis, I was able to understand that these nightmares are actually unaddressed needs. And I was seeing that the nightmares that I was having had to do with like the chaos in my life I wasn't dealing with, chronically, like terribly, even for me, neglecting my needs. And so in all of that, now I can't tell you the last time I had a nightmare. And my nightmares were so bad. It would be like someone who I love to death would be like dying in my arms and it was my fault. Or someone would be hunting me or trying to kidnap me or trying to murder me. And so not having those is obviously a gift in and of itself. But now it's not only having the relief of that, but I'm not afraid of relapsing into these bad habits. Because to me, if I have a nightmare, that's like, oh, what do I need? I'm not caught up in the emotion of the nightmare. I'm not beating myself up for regressing and just being someone who has nightmares. And the same is true with like overly self-critical or self-sabotaging thoughts. To me, it's an indicator that I am neglecting myself on some level. And while that's annoying to fall into that habit, I'm glad every time I'm notified that I am in that habit. Because the more needs that I meet, I mean, I don't know how this works. Maybe some of you could explain it to me. You don't have to, please don't. I know there's like science behind it and stuff, and I've read a few books that help me put it together. But really, for me personally, when I get really good at meeting my own needs, I'm less resentful of other people. I'm less offended by other people. I'm less fearful of the entire world. I'm less anxious because I know that I can take care of myself. It's just an all around. Not only is it great that those things are gone or heavily diminished, but even if they come back, I know exactly what to do with them and I'll be better for it. So I love that. Kind of in that same vein is my migraines and the anxious feelings that I experience from time to time. So I used to be someone who got migraines like even a couple times a month, which is life altering. If I didn't have at the time like such horrible self-talk and neglecting my needs, like I don't know how I would have maintained a job. Like it was just, I was in a bad spot for a little bit. But I have learned so much from my migraines. I've talked about it on this podcast before. I've experienced past lives that hinted at like, oh, this pain could be residual from this and it'll lighten it a little bit. But at the end of the day, the more I truly get to know my needs and unashamedly meet those needs, the fewer migraines I have. And if I get a migraine, it's because I haven't been sleeping, I haven't been eating right, I haven't been really having downtime or even time to meditate or journal during the day. It's just when I get a migraine, it's because I've had the pedal to the metal. And sometimes I got to do it and like risk a migraine. Sometimes, we're just in those times in my life. But knowing that that could happen, I can put other support systems in place. So that's been a beautiful thing. I've learned a ton from them. And I don't know, I maybe get like 3 or 5 a year now. 5 seems like a lot, maybe like 3. And when I do, it's like I know how to move myself through that day. I know what it feels like when it's not going to go away. So I just like shut her down for 24 hours. And usually that's enough to like really pull me out of it. But if I resist it and deny it, it'll last for 3-4 days. And so I just have to surrender to her. And it's so funny because the last time I got a migraine, it was almost like my spirit guides were like, we've been trying to talk to you. And I was just basically laying on the couch with the migraine, with the notes app on my phone open, just like downloading all these ideas for work that I was getting. So it's kind of funny the way that works for me. And again, if I experience it, it might not be great, but it's not going to take me out. It's not going to make me hate myself. It's not going to put me in a terrible ass mood. And if it does affect my mood, I know what to do to neutralize it or pull it out. I'm not piling on. And the same is true with my anxious feelings. It's amazing what can happen to our bodies when we tune in and check in with what we need and actually fulfill those needs. And if you're a sensitive person, if you're someone who just, what is expected from the average person in this country, if that, is at odds with what you need, I think that it creates anxiety. And I don't think it's bad or good, or it's a waste of time maybe to see what's bad or good about it. And instead just being like, it is what it is. How can I move myself through this in a way that like honors what my body needs and allows myself to not like sabotage my life in this world as well? So migraines and anxiety, way more manageable. And again, if I get it, it's just kind of like a signal of something that has a big need that I haven't picked up the signal yet. And I don't beat myself up about it. And my goodness, that means I have, a handful of anxious days in a year and not just a handful of years of anxiety strung together before I do something about it, which is definitely where I was in my late 20s and early 30s. Let's see. Another thing I have on here is comfort in the unknown. And not only in the unknown of like not sweating the future, not needing 50 signs, just following my intuition instead of needing like 10 solid signs that this is the thing I should be doing. That's really it. It's like comfort in the unknown, but it's also in that is like trusting myself. And then not only comfort in the unknown, but comfort in all the unknowns, like ghosts, entities, earthbounds, elementals, ETs on some level. And I think that has to do with knowing my power, knowing the energetics of those situations. It's like, wow, all of that fear is gone. Now, I don't want an ET visit in the middle of the night. Because I don't want a visit from any stranger in the middle of the night. I've said this, people have heard me say this before in kinship. It's dating rules around here. Okay. If you don't want to see me at noon, I don't want to see you at midnight. And that goes for ETs, entities, all that. Leave me alone at night. And feel free to take that boundary into your own life if it feels good. But knowing the power that I have and the ability to set boundaries and handle myself in these unseen realms, in the unknown of the future, in the, unknown of the unseen beings and entities around us, it really is. I think it comes down to like, I know that I can trust myself. I have the education. I have the experience. I've gone through layers. I've gone through levels. And I'm just not afraid of those things anymore. Now, if there is an entity or a malevolent energy, I'm not giving my energy to it. I'm not giving my attention to it. unless I'm clearing it. So I also have my boundaries around these things. I'm not just, getting all turned up and then not doing anything about it. I'm very comfortable around it. And it's really a grounded and centered feeling coming from how I set myself up energetically every single day and just my history and my learning about those things like entities, ETs, navigating the unseen realms around us. Yeah, it's just this really deep self-knowing and trust in my power. And even though I think when I started out, I don't know if I felt so much this way 5 years ago, but for sure when I first started out as a client of hypnosis in 2013, I think that I was really trying to find happiness, feel happier in my life. And in knowing that, there was also this drive and understanding that I had to know myself first. And I do for sure. I have way more happiness, way more peace, joy. I feel way more love in my life now than I did 5 years ago. And I think that overall what happens is that for me, I don't know if life gets easier, but I for sure feel better in the unknown, like I said, which helps me just feel more at peace more often and to trust myself. And that allows me to be more present. And that's a goal, is to be more present. And that equals more positive emotions in general, but it's not like the negative stuff goes away. I mean, it's life. I think that the equal and opposite is always possible. I think that we pulse in and out of good times and bad times. And sometimes I kind of think that part of our work is to find support and community like through the difficult times in life, and then community and people to share the good times in life, and like the wisdom to feel peace and learn from it all and be present in that space. And that is so much better than just being happier in the life that I was in when I first got uncomfortable. Oh, people often ask me or people don't often ask me this, but every once in a while someone asks me why would we do this? Why do we heal? Who cares? Why are we always talking about trauma? And I think it's because this is my experience, is that we all have parts of ourselves that we had to squash, set aside, exile, ignore, try to, detach ourselves from in order to gain love and acceptance as a kid. And I think it's before age 7, your brain waves are essentially in that theta state a lot. So just the more information that's being plugged into our subconscious minds. And it's not, even if you had the best parents in the world, or, when we're acquiring our life skills and never checking in with them again, it's kind of like learning to brush your teeth when you're in kindergarten and then never reviewing that and being is there a better grip? Is there a better pattern to get into here? And I think that a lot of times the discomfort that we feel pushes us to look at these negative things and try to make something good out of it, try to make decisions in the future that help us avoid it, or gain strength or knowledge so we can navigate it better or avoid it. And sometimes I get people who are well, I don't, I'm afraid of what I'm going to see, or why do we do this healing? And if we don't look at and acknowledge our shadow, it's my belief that we start to see it in everyone else but ourselves. Kind of that whole thing of if everybody has the same problem, it's probably me. Every relationship, if it ends the same or has the same qualities that I don't like, I'm the common denominator there. And for me, I think that if I'm not open to at least seeing these not so appealing parts of myself that I've like pushed away or squashed down, they're there and they are influencing me. And I would rather be mindful of that. I would rather know what that is. I would rather use that energy, understand that energy, and direct it in a different way. I would rather just know the rules of the game, know what's influencing me. And it has been such a cool path of discovery to truly get to know myself and get to know myself without judgment or without trying to see certain things, being open to seeing like the not so beautiful things, because I think it's all there for us. It's all there for a good reason, and we're all adults now. And so why not look at it every once in a while? Or not necessarily, you don't even have to go looking for it. To me, I don't ever have to go looking for these things. Like, I'm a mindful person, so when I'm uncomfortable, when I'm frustrated, when I'm encountering the same issue or problem or block over and over again, that's just my signal to dig in. And I don't know, what else are we going to do while we're here? Most of us come to a podcast like this because we're experiencing some sort of stuck feeling, some sort of is there more feeling, some sort of desire to be inspired and to kind of reach a higher knowing or a higher understanding. And I think it all starts with ourselves. And the more work we do in that space, the less things that scare us. The more gnarly ass shit I encounter, the more I show up to life with a good sense of humor and a light outlook, just being like curious what's going to happen. And it's not that I never feel fear, of course I do, but it seems to me that fear is a lot more relevant and a lot more appropriate, and I just have a better relationship with it. I spent a lot of time just having fear about feeling fear, which is such a waste of time. I hope you're not dealing with that. But to just relax more into the present moment and access my knowing and my power and feeling less fear. Damn, I mean, that I used to be just run by fear. Okay, now I'm rambling. I could go on and on about all the changes that I've seen. That's kind of the big few buckets, and I'm going to leave it right there. If this has spurred questions, click the link in the show notes and submit your question. I'll answer them in a couple weeks in an episode, either the last one or second to last one. And yeah, that's where I'm going to leave it today. So thanks so much for tuning in. As always, if you thought of someone while you were listening to this, forward them the episode. Maybe they need to hear it. And just for you, as always, take anything that makes your load feel lighter and just leave the rest.